I'm Father Bernard, I'm parish priest.
Okay, well my name's Emma Heath, I'm the guider in charge.
My name is Alan Whittaker, I am a reader.
My name is Pat Fleming and I'm currently the president of the UCM.
My name's Neil Goddard, I sing in the choir.
I'm Joe Kelly, I'm the Vice President of the SVP.
I'm John Stevenson and I'm an observer.
I'm Lucy Gordon-Smith. St Peter's Parish helped fundraise for me to go to World Youth Day.
My name is Honor Murray and I teach for 1 day a week at St Peter's School.
I'm Phil Murphy, I'm the chair of the Third World Group.
My name's Steve Giblin, I'm now a Eucharistic Minister.
My name is Elizabeth Merrilees. I was Chair of Governors for 19 years.
Whenever we move on from parish to parish, different parishes bring different gifts, different blessings. Obviously it was a new situation for me. I'd never worked on this side of the diocese before. Stalybridge was unknown to me until I came here 12 years ago. You know, St Peter's Parish and St Raphael's now, the two parishes have been brought together, is a very blessed place, and I couldn't have asked for a better place to celebrate 25 years of priesthood. We have a wonderful church and the liturgy has been very special. There's been some really special occasions, and we have so many blessings in our schools as well, particularly our primary schools. Over the time I've been here, I've tried to establish fresh parish groups and to strengthen those parish groups that already existed, and I think it's a very blessed community. There's lots of gifts here. People work very hard and are very generous, not just cash-wise, but also with their time and their talents, and that makes it very easy, or a lot easier, to be parish priest.
When I first arrived at St Peter's, it was like going home. It wasn't a job I intended to go for, actually. And then I met somebody who worked in Marks and Spencer's, and she said to me, "Honor, I've just seen the job for you." And my contract was up at St John's in Tuckingfield, and so I went for the interview and got the job. And it's been like home ever since. That's part of the ethos of the school. It's we also belong to a wider community. I always remember one of the advisors coming in for special educational needs, and she opened the door and said, I can feel the ethos of the school. She said it's something very special, and I've only just walked through that door. You know, it's the parents, it's all the people involved. It's teachers, it's non-teaching staff. They all contribute to this ethos, as well as the parishioners and the priests and everyone involved in the parish. It continues to grow and thrive in the way it has done over all these years, and get through difficult times. It must have gone through difficult times. People in Stalybridge long ago must have been very hard, and yet they supported the church and they supported the faith, and they continued to hope that, you know, future generations still have that great faith in God and the church.
I can only describe the UCM as a group of like-minded ladies of all ages who are welcoming, witty, and our aim at the UCM is to promote and protect family life. I've not been a member of the UCM for very long, only about 6 or 7 years, and to be honest, I knew nothing or very little about the UCM before I did join. I joined because I was invited to join, and after spending some time with members on an ad hoc basis, I knew that I would like to become a full member. So I'd like to think that the parish could always call on the UCM for any reason at all. We like to join in as many parish activities as possible. We try to support other groups both financially and physically whenever we can, and would like to think that all the ladies in the parish know that they would be made very welcome if they'd like to come along to join us. There are so many times that have left me with lots of happy memories, but I must say that each time we have enrolments at one of our monthly masses, that does make me very proud and gives me a lot of pleasure. But our parish celebration of the centenary of the UCM has to be one of the happiest memories. We celebrated it with a lovely mass when some of our members were presented with certificates to commemorate 50 years of membership to the UCM. It was one of those occasions when you're completely tired out at the end of the evening, but absolutely bursting with happiness and left with many treasured memories. We're all very proud to be members of the Union of Catholic Mothers. but we hope that we can leave a legacy to all future members to ensure that they will be treasured and loved, just like us.
You started the Cubs, Gerard, wasn't it?
Well, I think we just fell into things, did our best, and like I say, we started one or two things, like Tom Kiddies, he started me with the Cubs. That's how we went on, you know, different ways. We had a good time, really, I think.
I was looking for something to do of an evening and just thought, well, I'd really enjoyed Guides when I was in it, so rang somebody up and said, do you need any help? And they said, yes, of course we do. So I came down just to help out. I think I spent the first year or so just helping out as a unit helper, and then the lady who ran the Guide at that time, she left, and myself and Elaine took over running the Guides and been here ever since. We're very lucky enough to meet here at St Peter's Parish Hall and use the facilities, and Parish is great in supporting us in any events that we do, and also we're able as a unit to take part in and support the parish, which is great for the girls to be able to live out their promise in parish activities as well. I've had absolutely loads of good times while I've been in Guides. Loved it. Some of my favourite memories are definitely from the times where perhaps I've done something that I wouldn't have ever done if I'd not been in guiding. Things like canoeing on Lake Windermere or abseiling or zip wiring, things like that I wouldn't have done unless I'd been helping out with the Guides. Yeah, it was a great time, really good to be able to celebrate 100 years of guiding. I think we started the year as having a service to celebrate at St Peter's, and we asked lots of previous members of guiding of our unit, past guide leaders and past guides, past brownies and rainbows to come along and celebrate with us. Great time, lots of things going on. Just hope for our guiding unit that continues and girls go through guides as rainbows, brownies and guides, and then come out the other end being young leaders and then leaders, and they're able to give back to girls in the future.
Well, we had meetings with parents. I think we had 6 meetings with parents and people from the parish who belong to the group to support children in making the first communions. We had the children all together while the parents were at the meetings, and they did activities. And what was very important, I felt, those children got to know people from the parish. And it was the same with the prayer sponsors parties, that the children became very aware that there was a broader aspect to school than just school, that they were part of the parish community. I think abiding memory is when the child who made the introduction stood up and said, this is a very special day. It's the day we are going to receive Jesus in Holy Communion for the very first time. And each time that child who introduces gets up and says, this is a very special day. It is a very special day.
Great days. Whit Friday, it was always Whit Friday, you know. They had the procession. Dozens and dozens of young men, and elderly men, of course. School children, the Mayor Queen, everybody took part. It was actually, I always thought, the very best in the town. It was a big thing. Everybody was on holiday. It was a super day. Then when after the benediction at church, of course, we all went up to the football field, you know, had a lovely afternoon, and a massive sports day, you know, very, very well organised too.
Whit walks had changed a lot. Just remembering when my children were young, the Whit walks were much bigger. First Communion children took a great part in it. Each class had a lot of children in it. And as the procession has got smaller, not as many children have turned up. It's holiday time, so it doesn't have the same visual impact that it used to have. But it's still very exciting, I think.
My first memory of Jack Bowker was sitting at the end of an aisle wanting to be picked for the offertory, because the way they do it now, where it's all organised, didn't used to happen. It was about 9:30 Mass. It used to be the children's Mass, so you get all the children sat right towards the centre aisle wanting to be picked for the offertory, because Jack would just walk down the aisle and he would just pick 4 children at random to bring the offertory gifts up. So we'd all be there. Pick me, pick me, pick me, please pick me, pick me. So yeah, then when I started serving, it was different because you got to know Jack, but you'd see him as this big, tall, imposing figure, and you didn't want to let him down. But you'd have a laugh with him. I always remember whenever women came into the sacristy, they started doing the hair. He'd go straight over to them, vanity, vanity, vanity. Most of the time, they'd just burst out laughing. But yeah, he'd always be talking to people. He knew everyone, and he must have been the only male member of the Mothers' Union, who was an honorary member. It used to be always Jack Bowker and his ladies. You never really saw him as a person, so strange as it may seem. When you get older, you get to know him a bit better, and you just you see him as the person rather than the role and the figurehead, because he was the rock of the church. It's weird, when you see him outside church, you can have a laugh with him, you can talk about stuff. And when you're in church, it's all slightly more serious. He still have a laugh with you, but he'd concentrate on the job in hand. Probably sort of like I do now. Jack would always look after his older servers. I miss him.
I was only 20, so from 20 to 87, I was with John, long time. The parish priest was Father Gary, and the priest that married us was Father Leo Holleran. We were married at 8:15 at Saturday morning, and the mass was at 8:30, and then we went to a cafe in Portland Place because they used to say like wedding breakfast, it used to be it was very nice. And then in the evening, John and I went away during the day, but in the evening they had a lovely party in school. All the families, all butlers and all those, and they were so simple but lovely times.
Favourite memory of the day, of course, was getting married to Mary, but many happy memories of the service, because we went in at the start of the service with quite overcast skies and things like that, and when we emerged after being married, the sun shone, so that's always a good sign. Father Murphy conducted the service, and I always got on with Father Murphy very well. Very reassuring for me, and being nervous on the day. I was sat in the what's the side room called? Was it Presbytery? Well, I sat in there, and they had an armchair at the time, and I had a black suit on. I didn't realise it, but I sat down. My best man, when I stood up, said, "Oh my God, you've got cat hairs all over your suit." So I had to be brushed down. I was that nervous. 5 minutes later, I sat down in the same chair again, so we had to go through it all over again.
Never had these, you see, in my young days. Nay, I don't know with all this newfangled technology. What can I do with it, Joe?
No, they don't know what they've already needed.
They don't. Anyway, what's you laughing at, Joe? What's you laughing at?
I am taking you.
People, used to stop me in the town in Ashton and say to me, "I know you from those lank." Oh, we do enjoy them.
There's one guy in Duckingfield brought his children up with it, from being 5 years old, and they were still coming when they were 17-year-old.
Yes. When I go back to the very, very early scripts, when we were very naive and very raw, some of those evenings that were put together I could now squirm.
As time went on, we got more professional.
People came. Time went on, we got very sophisticated. We had all sorts of background noises and background fill-ins. We got very sophisticated as we went on.
We had a rhinoceros on stage once. Do you remember the rhinoceros when it got punctured coming up on the stage?
Oh, yes.
And Brian Lavin, he was like Tarzan, he used to keep patting it like that. And the thing was getting smaller, it was going down, wasn't it?
The Lanky, I'd been watching it for years, and then I was approached. To be honest, at the time, I felt quite privileged to be asked to be part of what was quite an intimate group, but I soon settled into it, and it's probably one of the best things I've ever done. I really enjoyed it. There's 2-3 sketches always stand out in my mind, but I think my favourite was probably the very first thing I ever did, which was the Land Army sketch, where I played Farmer Owroyd, and I think I did it pretty well. The support cast I had at the time, which was Joan, Rita, Hannah, Jill. It was I just enjoyed doing it, and I mean, people would call me Farmer Owroyd for yonks after that.
The wedding was a brilliant one.
Now, the wedding, that was instigated with an idea from Phil Murphy. He handed me and it was like all the talking in church, and I said to Joni that we won't get talking in church. So we decided that we would would record it.
Yes, oh yes.
And just sit there with the recording played and put the dialogue to it, and that was brilliant. That really went on.
That was a brilliant. The wedding was one that's well remembered when nobody spoke a word. Those sketches really were pretty amazing. They weren't really.
St Peter's SVP started it was first thought about in 1927, when some of the CYMS contacted the priest and thought that there was a need for a conference. So they started a provisional conference, and that went on for about 18 months. And after 18 months, 2 years, they all agreed that there was a need for the SVP, so a conference was started in 1929, and it's been going ever since. Now there is a place in Oldham called Porter Street that we are very deeply involved with, and that's for our young people between 18 and 25. They take them in and they give them accommodation. I think they can take in about 18 people at the moment. They give them education on computers and what have you, and we're deeply involved in that, and so is the parish. No, it's a fantastic organisation, and I'm very glad that I joined. Peter Stevens is a fantastic president. He's a go-getter. And we have a good secretary and a good treasurer. I was more laid back than Peter, As long as the SVP kept going, that's all I was interested in, really. I didn't want it to finish. It's surprising how you feel when you've been to visit someone, and perhaps they've only seen 1 or 2 people during the week, and you go, and it's surprising that the feedback you get from how glad they are to see you, and how good you feel after you've been when they've told you. And also that a lot of people think that the SVP are holier than thou, but if you were ever to come to any of our meetings and hear the laughter that goes on, you'll know very well that we're not.
Well, originally it was formed over 20 years ago, really. In fact, the first group met in somebody's house. The irony of that was we always had a lot to eat, which was a bit strange for a third world group. We tried to find somebody who worked on the ground where the third world need was, so that they could manage it. We felt that the parish had a lot to give, and we just felt there was a need in St Peter's because we didn't do enough. About 15 years ago, 12 years ago, Alan Pickles went out to Gambia, and we, as a parish, started to fund a nursery, and we adopted this school, and it was called St Peter's Nursery. We adopted the school, paid the staff's wages and paid for improvements in the building, and some of us went out there and worked in the school. And in fact, when we were there in 2005, we were actually in the first meeting when we found a new room for the school, 2 new rooms for the school, which became a much better school in a building with a playground. And we've spent a lot of money on that, being led by Alan Pickles in particular, who gives loads and loads of his time and energy to it. But probably that's affected more lives than anything else we've done. In the medium term, one of the prime things is that the awareness of people in this country through some of the work I do in schools, for instance, and that other people do, and the fact that news and media is available to everybody. You would hope that some of the problems that the third world faces now won't be problems in 50 years' time.
St Peter's helped fundraise the money for Rio. Father Bender was absolutely brilliant. We put things in the bulletin advertising what was happening, and it was amazing because there'd be people who'd come up to me in the street and say, "Oh Lucy, glad to catch you. I want to give you £10 donation for Rio. Have a wonderful time, make sure you get something, make sure you do something brilliant while you're there," and it was amazing that so many people were being so very generous to me. It felt like the entire parish in a way was going to be coming with me. My favourite memory from World Youth Day in Rio was the first day that I went up to Christ the Redeemer. I was very lucky, I got to go up twice. First time we went up there, and it was this beautiful day, and we just got to the top of this mountain, and the statue, which is so iconic, of Rio, of Christ the Redeemer, it was just so beautiful. It is the most beautiful place I've ever been. There's a small chapel, and people had been booking for nearly a year in advance to get a time slot to say Mass in this chapel, and it just so happened that there was a free 20-minute slot, so we could have Mass there, and I got to read at this Mass as well. Reading at the Mass under the statue of Christ the Redeemer was just awe-inspiring. and there aren't really words to describe it. I think pilgrimage for Catholics is really important because when you're on pilgrimage, especially if it's to a different country, you encounter a different culture but your same faith, and it gives you a new perspective on it. They may have a way of looking at something that you've never thought of before. Like the Latin American culture that I saw in Rio, everything was just so joyful all the time. It was infectious and wonderful. It's only by going on pilgrimage that you get to understand your faith better. And I hope that the parish always has someone going to the next World Youth Day, because that would be an amazing thing to have.
The decision to join the RCIA group came after many years with a wife who was a Catholic, and I felt that to complete the actual cycle of being a Catholic was to actually receive the sacraments, and that was something I was unable to do. So I felt that although I attended Mass every week and I enjoyed the Mass, there was something missing, and it was necessary for me to make that decision finally to say, yes, I want to receive the sacraments, I want to become a Catholic. There was 8 of us actually who were undertaking the RCIA. The people that were with us and Father Bernard made it interesting. Discussions were absolutely fantastic. The literature that was handed out were very informative, and it wasn't something that you felt worried about. It was just very interesting, great discussions, and I enjoyed it.
I think we're thinking about being born again, new life, resurrection, Easter. It's to do with resurrection, beginning again, starting a life of, you might say, Alleluia after Lent, and there are no Alleluias. It's a very moving occasion because these adults have appeared, and sometimes there have been 1 or 2 of a considerable age. They are surrendering themselves. They are not exactly throwing in their lot, but you see what I mean. They're giving their all to the cause that has called them and that they are fully anxious to be part of. All of that is very, very special. It really is. It's a great occasion, terrific occasion.
I feel completely part of the church now, you know. It's completed something. I'm a Catholic, I enjoy the Mass. Obviously now I'm a Eucharistic minister, I'm involved more with the church. And I feel that you want to enrich other people's lives by doing these things and encourage people to come to church. And you just don't want to miss anything. Lots of different things are going on, which are interesting, and it gets more people involved in the church. And if they're not Catholics, they come to the social events, and hopefully they may well come to church and get involved like I did and become an RCIA candidate.